Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Men of Ann Arbor podcast, brought to you by the good people at New Amendment. I am one of your hosts, Stu Douglas, alongside Nik Stauskas, as always. Nick, what's going on, man?
Another day, another dollar. Stu, it's always good catching up with you. How you been?
I know. I feel like we're more friends than ever, and I haven't seen you in like 7 years.
Yeah, nowadays, if we go more than 3 or 4 days without texting, it's like, I don't know what's going on. So I'm glad we've been able to rekindle this friendship.
Yeah, it has been fun. I was talking to my wife about going to the Michigan State game. Like, yeah, party with Nick and Spike and Zach, just like it was a guarantee. And I'm like, well, I haven't talked to them really. Like, I haven't seen them in years, so I don't know if it's going to be the same. But it always is. It always is a good time. It's just like getting everyone together is always the issue.
Yeah, it's tough. Everyone's got their own schedules going. So life hits you hard. It's hard to like, in general, stay in touch with all your friends and family. Just with social media and how it's expected today. So it's good that we have these kinds of things in place where we're like, man, we can just talk, be in this space, talk hoops, talk Michigan basketball and have a good time.
I always like to go through, before we start with some basketball stuff, I need some new dad news from you. Anything you've learned in the last month? Because I feel like it's that time. I can't remember how old, but it's like everything's changing, right? Constantly.
Oh, no doubt. Every day it's a new challenge or she's doing something new. She's about 5 months old now. So all is good. She's sleeping through the night, which is, that's like a game changer for me. But I would say I've become a lot better at like rocking a baby to sleep. Like I didn't have the touch at first. And now I feel like over 5 months of like nonstop, like rocking and like laying her down gently in her crib, I've got it like down to a T. So
basically it's like the same thing as like a reverse left-hand layup through traffic. Just the same kind of touch.
It's all about finesse. It's all about finesse. This is not like a strength and power game. Although I will say like the older they get, the heavier they get, that rock starts like getting the biceps burning a little bit. So now I'm feeling like I'm getting a workout while parenting, to kill two birds with one stone. So can't complain.
Oh yeah, my brother-in-law had tendonitis in his elbows because his baby was so big, and they're like, "Yeah, I had to stop carrying her," and she was still like not even a year old. But I'm picturing you running like a workshop for NBA dads about how to finesse their kids to sleep. Like it's all about the touch.
Maybe
it's like part of the personal workout session.
Yeah. Now first we start with shooting lessons, and then after shooting lessons, and then we go to
bring your baby
specifics on how to rock. Yeah. Bring your kids.
Yeah, we need some graphics if we can get that team something. Nick rocking a baby to sleep. But Michigan, man, wild. Like the ups and downs has been crazy. I don't think Michigan has looked this good in the Ohio State game. But let's break it all down the last week. Let's get into the X's and O's. So yeah, wild ride. The Penn State blowout was like everyone's rock bottom in terms of fandom, right? You saw it on Twitter. You felt it just watching them. They were lost. It's not like we haven't been there before. We've all been there in certain situations on teams, but with the dire need for wins that Michigan needs, it felt like everything was lost. And a lot of people are still counting them out. I mean, the uphill climb is huge, but the big win, substantial win against Northwestern, who's no pushover. And then this win, which is technically a quad one win against Ohio State. I'm a roller coaster, dude. I'm back on they can run the table. That's what I'm thinking now. Maybe I'm dumb, but
I sadly want to agree with you. And now I look like the biggest pushover because just 7 days ago, I was sitting here on this podcast being like, yeah, no chance. They're done. Season's over. Like chalk it up. Start looking forward to next year. But this is how this team's been all year. It's just been up and down, so inconsistent week to week. You don't know what team you're going to see. But yeah, these last two wins, they're giving me this, I see a little light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm like, could it be? Because you look at this week now and you're like, hey, if they take care of business with Nebraska, who's at the bottom of the Big Ten, and then they get if they have that one game, I use that one game that they're going to need where they really they come and they bring their A game and have a quality win against a quality team. Because even right now, Northwestern is no pushover, but Ohio State, it's still hard for me to feel like super excited about that win just because they've been struggling so much. So again, there's positive signs just from the X's and O's and what we're seeing out there, which we'll get into. But then again, even when I see those positives, I'm like, man, can you really depend on them to bring it again next week and the week after and the week after that? That's where the question marks kind of begin for me.
Yeah. Consistency has obviously been the issue. The Ohio State game, I'm watching the entire game, and the whole time I'm watching, I'm like feeling like this team is good. Like I'm watching a good basketball team. I'm not watching a team that's, made a run for the last 5 minutes. Now they've got the lead. Now they got to hold on to it. And then they got to make another run to win the game. Like they controlled the whole game against quality talent. Yeah, Ohio State's been down for sure. And they have some issues. What the things they were doing with Holtman with the lineup and stuff was bizarre. But they weren't making the mistakes they were before, right? It wasn't like, all right, the other team went cold and they got lucky and they won the game. I've never seen them rotate more on defense all season. There was times that Jet tagged the roller, right? He's in help side and he's tagging the roller, and he tagged him. Like it wasn't like kind of like a stunt and like I'm kind of in the area. He tagged his man and then tagged the roller and then got back to his man like boom, boom. Like he didn't all year, and he did it multiple times. And I was like, did they take this past few days and just hammer this away? Like they must have had one of their Beeline vintage TV games where they sprinted for mistakes, something like that. Like you come back, that Penn State game was embarrassing, and they responded the exact way you wanted to against Northwestern, and then even upped it against Ohio State. Like it's like zero mistakes. I'm like waiting to count all the mistakes like it would in the other games. Nothing. Like this was like a good ass basketball team that I was watching. That's what gives me hope.
The one thing that I love from these two games that's given me hope is you look at that first half against Northwestern, and I thought they were pretty bad offensively. They weren't making shots. Can't remember exactly what their field goal percentage was in that first half. It wasn't good. I think 29% in the first half, but offensive rebounding and then just effort on the defensive end on the road to keep yourself in the game. Then they went on that 18-2 run to start the second half. The shots started falling. Like that's what gives me a little bit of hope is, for this team, I've felt like for them to be playing well on, defense and have that energy, they needed to be scoring to get that kind of swagger. Cause it's hard to want to defend, make that extra rotation when you're 0 for 4 from 3 and shots aren't falling. That's just how basketball is. And so to see that change from them in that first half, it kind of kept themselves in the game through effort and defense. That was a big step forward for me because we've seen that this team, when they're playing well offensively, they can score. They got some talented guys, but that kind of effort that they gave on the defensive end is going to allow them to have those off shooting nights and still hang around. This team's not going to, blow every team out of the water. They're not that good. They need that defensive side of things to give them a chance on a game to game basis.
No, completely. And it's taken a while, but we all knew, like you and me both were like waiting for them to just pick it up and be a little more consistent. Now they could turn on next game and have troubles, but this was a stretch you were waiting for, and you just had to be patient for it. Now, is it too little too late? Probably, just because it's so hard to win out now the rest of the games the Big Ten would require. But I've said it before on the podcast. I'll say it again. Like, as long as they keep building this, they have a shot in the Big Ten tournament. Mm-hmm. It's down. You keep playing like this, no one's going to want to watch. No one's going to want to face you in the Big Ten tournament. Like, if you're playing that hard and that consistent, you get like a 15-point lead in the Big Ten tournament, might as well be 30. I swear. Like, it's like the other team will just give up right away. We did this every year. We always played Iowa for whatever reason. And they were like never great. And they always had like maybe a shot like on the bubble or close to, winning the tournament. But we just put them down early, shut them down. And they're like, they just gave up. There's a whole 20 minutes left in the half. This is what happens. So they can do this. They have to believe in themselves and stay consistent with it. But top to bottom, it was the rotations, the switching. That was another thing. The switching was so much cleaner. The back screen, the guard-to-guard switching in particular. And they just switched more, which I like. In college basketball, I think you need to switch more just in general. Like unless you're playing ED and it's the Doug McDaniel ball screen, there's certain situations, but everything was crisp. And so I'm excited. I'm not really sitting here. I think a lot of people are like rolling their eyes, like, where was this before? But I'm truly just excited to like watch this keep going, even as, maybe they lose the next 2 games and completely out. Like, I want to see the progression. I think that's such a fun part of basketball. It's maybe boring to most people if, people aren't winning, but I don't know. It makes me excited for like the program, because I'm really rooting for the program as a whole. And Juwan on the hot seat, right? He's been on the hot seat, sort of. Mm-hmm. Heavy quotes, because it's mostly Twitter trolls and people talking loudly that don't really matter. But this is a next step for him as well. So all in all, it's these things that like add up that are like hard to see the underlying things of a program. But I don't know. I think that the X's and O's on both sides were good. I think the offense was really good as well. I mean, there's a lot of sets that I saw. I think everything just looks crisper. I don't know. Do you think that, like you said, both ends kind of go together, right? You do well on one end, you're going to do better on the other end.
Yeah. What stood out with me for the Northwestern game, I had 21 assists and 7 turnovers.
Wild. They haven't had that many. They haven't had over 20 all year, right?
No, I feel like that was the most assists they've had all year. So that was a positive sign. They got back to take care of the ball, and the ball was moving well. And it kind of led me to think the ball screen started working. The ball screen offense started working well against Northwestern again. And I've started to notice, I feel like Michigan has more success in the ball screen against teams that are more aggressive, hard showing, hard hedging, because it forces the guards to either get rid of it or make that pass. Whereas when teams are in a drop against Michigan, I feel like that's when Doug and Kobe, maybe, or even Jet, they start feeling like, okay, I need it. You feel like you're open for that mid-range pull-up when the big man's all the way back in that drop. Yep. And it kind of like lures them into settling for those. And then, you end up having 10, 15 possessions, or feels like empty possessions throughout the game, where that's where you end up with at the end of the shot clock. And the Northwestern game, I just felt like they started getting that crisp ball movement, player movement, even having guys like Joey Baker come into the game and knock down shots. That's another huge sign. Talking about bench productivity all year long. They've been lacking that guy to come in and make a difference. Now, last 2 games, we've seen Joey come to life. And what I like about him too is he has that confidence, and he's starting to hunt for his shots. And that's what I like to see. I think too many times this year, he's coming to games and maybe been a little too timid or passive. And I feel like I just like his body language out there right now. He looked really, really confident. He's knocking down shots. He's even attacking closeouts and getting to the rim too, which is good. It takes some of the pressure off of, Kobe, Doug, Jet, who are playing a lot of minutes in a lot of these games. It gives Juwan that confidence to like take those guys out, give them a break, have someone come in. And I like too in that Northwestern game that Juwan took Jet out in that second half when he made that turnover. And then they went on their run when Joey went in the game, and he kind of rode with that. And I saw him talking to Jet a little bit, like giving him, probably teaching him a little bit. And I'm glad that even with Jet being his son, he's able to still hold him accountable, because that's what's needed, for them to win these games. Is that everyone needs to be held accountable, and Jet's a huge part of this. And he's still got as good as he is, he's still got a lot of growth left. So hopefully Juwan's continuing to push him to do that.
Yeah, big shout out to Joey. His play has been huge. I've been an advocate for him all year, because what you're going to get, and he's a sharpshooter, he's a hired gun, and if you can get him some shots, eventually it's going to come to him. And I think they've done a pretty good job of it, getting him, like setting him screens, trying to run him sets, using him as a weapon, not just a guy floating out there in the corner that can shoot, which is huge. And he rose up to the occasion, and you're seeing him, that Northwestern game, he played the most off the bench, and it was only 14 minutes. So they're still limiting it quite a bit. They went with a different lineup off the bench, which was interesting. Yo-Yo, it was like Yo-Yo, Reed, Baker, Jace, and Kobe, like all at one time or something wild that he hadn't played all year. And so, I don't know, it worked. It was fun. To see Yo-Yo in there was fun. And then they kind of did a similar thing against Ohio State with Jason there and Terrace and Joey and Kobe and then somebody else. I can't remember, maybe Jet. But just like different lineups where, you're getting from Jace. Like guys are getting comfortable in their roles a little bit. Joey's going to come in 15 minutes, get those shots up. You've seen Terrace's role scale back a little bit, but I think the bench is still a bit of work in progress. But again, like you said, just knowing that you're going to get something off the bench from Joey is huge. On the offensive end as well, I want to ask you about like what you liked from them. But a couple of things that I liked was the precision all around. Like it wasn't like they ran one set and then they were successful and then they had to run it again 3 more times and just hammer that. They like ran that set. It worked for a layup. They went to something else. Then they went to something else. They mixed it up, but everything they did while mixing up was clean and precise and ran pretty well. I think you get sloppy with screens as the game goes on. I think everyone can always set better screens. But that's what I mean. It was like watching like a real well-oiled machine, having the variety and the consistency within the variety, which is hard to do with a young team. One set I really loved was like semi-break, and Hunter, I don't know what they called it, if they had a call, a hand signal, if it was just on Hunter. Let's say Doug was bringing up, this happened a lot, Doug would bring up on the right side, and Jet would be on on the semi-break on the left wing. Hunter would be running down the middle, and Hunter, kind of like looking at the ball and then just like go straight to Jet's man and set a screen. And I think it came about points, but at the very least, it like had a lot of open looks and just really good opportunities. And that was like a little wrinkle that they hadn't done before a lot. And this one, it seemed like something like, like one of those good teams, like, all right, we're going to put this in kind of new. And then the good teams go out and they execute it. Like that stuff is where you get really good. And I thought that was just really fun to watch and kind of maybe even more hopeful than like just even on top of the wins.
No, I agree. There's been a rhythm to their offense that we haven't seen in a little bit. And even so with the Ohio State game, I thought, Hunter was great. But what I liked is it never really felt like they were force feeding him the ball, which is sometimes I feel like this offense gets in like everyone knows Michigan wants to post up Hunter. And so teams are coming in and either fronting him, overplaying him, doubling him so that the ball is out of his hands. And sometimes I feel like Michigan gets stuck in this place where they're like, you're looking and holding and wanting to throw it into him. And everyone knows you're trying to throw it into him. And so the offense gets stagnant. And I never felt like their offense got stagnant with the post touches. They gave him a steady dose. And I feel like when he did get it, he was either scoring or they were kind of setting that weird double team to him and he was making the right pass out of it. And, the rest of the guys were making plays on the backside. But yeah, I felt like there was a good, solid, crisp rhythm to this team that we haven't seen in a while. And I don't know, it might be too little, too late, but regardless, it's exciting as a fan, and it gives you a little bit of hope that maybe they do have a chance to make this work. Obviously, this week coming up is going to be huge, but there's some positive signs here, and also shout out to Kobe too.
We got to talk about Kobe.
Kobe Buffkin played 2 incredible games. I mean, that Northwestern game, he stuffed the stat sheet, almost damn near had a triple-double. And then same with Ohio State, doing a little bit of everything, scoring from the inside, outside. I think his defense has been phenomenal as well. He's been ripping dudes at half court, picking them up. And again, when he's playing with confidence on both ends, I think that's contagious. And the rest of those guys feed off of it. So I would love to keep, have him continue play with that kind of energy and aggressiveness.
It's like that filler role where Doug is going to lead the offense. They're going to run a lot for Jet and they're going to post up Hunter a lot. Mm-hmm. And to have Kobe fill in with aggressiveness at the right times and the other points and not need the ball all the time. Like he can wait, he can go 5 possessions in a row, or he can then wait 10 possessions after that and then have his run again. Kind of that Eli Brooks was, especially last year, and that's who he's been emulating his game on. I mean, that's huge to have, that 3rd, 4th guy who's really, I think, a top guy. I mean, I really foresee him being just a top guy in the Big Ten for a while. If he doesn't go to the league early, there, John Hollinger, who was is he like an NBA scout? He does like scouting and stuff, scouting reporting.
Right.
And he said, I think he made a joke on Twitter. It was like basically like, yeah, the scouting slack for each team. Yes, like after the game was like, okay, you wanted me to watch Howard and Sensabaugh, but who is this Kobe Buffkin guy? So like people are taking notice, after that near triple double against Northwestern, and damn near on pace at halftime. He had what, like 10, 5-4 halftime or something against Ohio State, and was on pace for the same thing. He's opening eyes, and I don't know. I hope he just plays consistent. I hope he doesn't leave. I don't think he'll leave. I think he could. That's a guy that could use like another year, but he's been unbelievable. Just with his execution and all ends, like he's just a jack of all trades, it's just so hard to do.
Yeah. Well, being a good, consistent two-way player it's so difficult, because to really lock up on the defensive end, it requires a lot of energy, effort, and attention to detail. And for a lot of guys, they're not willing to give up that energy on the defensive end that they want to use to score and get buckets and whatnot. And so that's why it's a highly coveted position in the NBA. I mean, scouts are looking at guys. Yeah. They love guys that can knock down threes and they can guard on the other end. And, those are two things that Kobe's continuously gotten better at. I feel like he's got long arms. He's athletic. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to say I hope he doesn't leave after this year. I don't think it would be the right move for him, but I do see the potential there long term if he continues improving.
Yeah, man. I remember like in the games playing 35 plus minutes and just being gassed in the last 4 minutes, like getting the ball on offense and being like, all right, there's a lane I could drive. And I'm like, nah, I'm too tired. Like, it's not going to work. Just pass it out. Go run a ball screen, Darius or Trey. Like, I don't feel like trying to give all this effort right now because I know I have to go back and guard the hardest for the last 3 minutes. So yeah, it's just not an easy thing to do. That's why it's impressive, especially at the end of the games, what he's been doing, just coming up clutch in so many different areas. But I also want to shout out Doug, staying aggressive. I mean, his efficiency hasn't been great,
but the scoring has been down. But I feel like he's making the right decisions and he's not forcing.
I mean, you get 9 assists against Northwestern and you're not scoring great. Like, you're doing something well. Like, you're contributing a lot by just staying aggressive, opening up things for other people, and just came to a head against Northwestern with 9 assists, which I think, it was a season high. So it's great to see. I mean, the other stuff will pick up. He started out with a good 3 against Ohio State. It's always fun to watch him hit the first shot. But again, he's just a work in progress. But I wanted to applaud him because he's also picking it up on the defensive end. He's trying his hardest. Sometimes, you get a little too short in there at 15 feet when you got like Sensabaugh on you, or you're guarding Sensabaugh, but he's scoring over everybody in 15 feet. So he's giving a lot of effort. I think he's slithering through screens really well. He was talking better with the switches, recovering a lot better, tagging a lot better as well. So they're doing it on both ends in the whole 30 minutes. Like you said, like I'm curious. Let me see if they look off the bench minutes. Yeah, they only had 25 bench minutes in total against Ohio State. This is not a lot. I mean, that's like Beeline type teams where he wants to play like 6 guys, maybe 7. So they did it. They did it from start to finish. Like, the Ohio State game was really impressive to me because they controlled it the whole way. And, 2 months ago, that would have been a tie ball game with a minute left, right? That would have been, something would have happened. There would have been an Ohio State run, and they just never even let them get close. It's like this is totally different.
This Michigan team within the last couple of weeks, I feel like a lot of the games have been close for the majority of the game, other than a 5-minute segment where Michigan lets the other team go on like a 13-0 run or 15-2 or something. And like you said, this game against Ohio State was one of the first times where they never let the other team necessarily get back into it or feel like they had a chance. They kind of controlled from start to finish. And again, I wouldn't say it was their very best offensive game, but for me, it looked, as far as the eye test goes, it was one of their best performances, just because, again, it was just consistent and steady balance of different options all game long. I feel like they ran some great sets for Jet that game, and he was, anytime they were calling his number, he was being aggressive with it. Hunter was great that Ohio State game. Like we said, Joey's still coming in and making plays. So overall, the offensive side of things has me positive, but also defensively against Ohio State, I think they were decent as well. I think the stat I had, they were 7 for 22. Ohio State was at the rim. And a lot of that was Hunter. I feel like just being physical, having his presence being felt, contesting shots, making things tough. That's something that hasn't always been there for him. And this team needs, like, a lot of the other games, teams are shooting like 80% at the rim against Michigan. It's like, how are you going to win when you're just letting teams get layup and dunks? So that's another positive sign about this team as well.
I feel like guys were attached. Like it wasn't like anybody turned the corner. They were more alongside the offensive player than they had been all year. Like they, maybe not totally in front, but they were there. Like they were felt. Where other games, it was like, no, we're trailing behind and now we got to try and recover for a block or something or make a steal off a bounce pass. But they stood their ground a lot better inside, which is huge, especially against a team, any college team, right? My old defensive philosophy was like, I'm not shutting you down by like stealing the ball from you or blocking you when you get inside. I'm going to stay in front. And if I stay in front of you, you're 7% less likely to hit this shot. And that's a world of difference. Like that adds up. And that's like, it's just a small thing, but it showed with that Ohio State team because they had a bunch of big guys that could score inside.
The average basketball fan would actually be surprised at the college level, even someone just taking a left-hand layup, what the difference in percentages of a wide open left-hand layup versus a left-hand layup where the defender just goes up vertical and is right next to you. I would love to see the numbers on that. It's so drastic. And that's why we've talked about guarding your yard all year long. As long as you don't get blown by and you are able to give somewhat of a contest in the paint, you would be shocked at how much lower their field goal percentage will be.
And then the big doesn't have to overcommit on the help, so they can kind of discourage the pass as well. Then, the other guy that has to help Hunter off the help doesn't have to come in so much. So now you're in better position for a kick out. Like it just adds up by a foot, by a foot, by a foot. And that's a world of difference. That's like 10 points a game. You can stop right there. And that's, I don't know. It's small, subtle things that you'll never be able to fully quantify. But like you said, the eye test, you're like, yeah, this just looks good. And then you notice like, oh yeah, that they've been staying attached for the last 4 possessions. So stuff adds up. But your left-hand layup thing is funny because I don't know about you, but I hated shooting open threes. I'd rather shoot it with somebody like kind of contesting me. I swear to God, I was so much better shooter. And I feel like you were like a good ass shooter too. It wouldn't anybody in your face. Who was it? Duncan Robinson too. When he was going on his historic run, he was a much better shooter with somebody contesting a shot than he was wide open.
Yeah, my biggest thing as a player, which is weird, I felt like I was almost better off the dribble with a contest because it forced me to use my legs more and get this kind of like fluid motion up into the shot. Whereas when I was wide open on a standstill, my biggest problem was catching flat-footed and then not necessarily using my legs the way I needed to and then missing short. And so I agree with you. I was a lot of time felt like I was a better shooter on the move or with a contest just because I felt like I had to jump a little bit higher and really hold my follow through and things like that. So that does make sense.
I had to learn how to shoot open threes in college. I didn't know how to do it. Like in the corner.
I didn't have to learn.
Never once shot a corner.
I knew how to do it.
You were pretty good at it.
In high school, not one time?
In high school, no. Like it was always someone always attached, or I was running off screens. Like Reggie Miller was my guy, right? And I played like that. Like in high school, I was a point guard growing up, but in high school, like I was always running off screens, and then always just someone just always attached to me. Maybe occasionally I would get an open three, but it usually wasn't from the corner. Like if it was from the corner, I was coming off a flare. There was a couple of plays we had that was coming off a flare. They were really good plays. We had some good offense, but yeah, I'd get shoot standstill threes, and I couldn't do it. I didn't get good at it until I went overseas, and then I came back and Beeline asked me what my 3-point percentage was my rookie year overseas. And I was like 42, 43, and he was shocked. And I was like, you a-hole. I'm like, yeah, I am a good shooter. I just don't stick me in the corner all the time. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because I want to segue because Jet is a freak at this. Like he'll shoot over anybody at any moment. There was a play where it was a baseline out of bound play. And he was coming off the center to the left wing, and that big dude, Suing, was like 6'7" for Ohio State. Big dude. And Hunter tried to set a screen on Suing, but Jet came off like enough space. But if it was me, I wouldn't even thought twice about shooting it. Like the 6'7" dude, like gonna block it, and he just let it fly and hit it like it was like he was wide open. Like I don't know that mentality. That mentality is like a little different. This kid can just shoot it whenever and he does not care who's in front of him, and he doesn't get blocked. That's what I don't understand.
He's got a deceptively quick release, and I also think with him when they run sets for him, whether it's baseline out of bounds or coming off a dribble handoff, I will say I notice him being with intent, being a little more aggressive for his shot on those plays, no matter like if someone's there attached, contesting, whatever. He's like, all right, plays for me, I'm going to go get mine, which isn't a bad thing. Because honestly, I feel like some of the time when he gets a little too heavy into like the one-on-one ISO stuff, it doesn't, I mean, he can hit tough shots, but it doesn't work as well for him. I like him more coming off pin downs, dribble handoffs, and just no hesitation, like one dribble, fire. Because I feel like that's where he's really good. But yeah, his size, his length, his athleticism allows him to get a shot off, over just about anyone. And he's creative enough with his handle and his footwork that he can shoot in a variety of different ways. But yeah, I think he fits. He doesn't get many open shots to begin with, but I think, he fits the mold of one of those guys as well, who I would love to see the percentages of, does he shoot better on catch and shoot or on the move off the dribble contested? Yeah,
he pretty much hits just everything. Like every time he releases it, you think it's going in, which is fun. And he's been, I don't know, I really just like these pin downs. Like you said, whenever you can get him in space, you can get guys on one side of the court and then let him and Hunter work on the other. I mean, that's just hard to stop. And then when the other guys are hitting shots, and Kobe and Doug have been shooting pretty well last few games, you get Joey out there, even Terrence. But yeah, all in all, X's and O's have been great on both sides for the last two games.
Mm-hmm.
They keep building on it. It's going to be exciting to watch the end of the year. But let's get into the next couple games, see who they got coming up. Let's get into the scouting report. So they got Nebraska on the 8th, and then on the 11th, they have IU. Nebraska, not good. 4-9 in the Big Ten. Just not a good team. This is a wild stat that I found looking up this team. They either win their 4 games or all their 9 losses are by 11 points or more. They're never any single-digit losses, which is which is, again, one of those teams, if you play hard at the beginning and you don't let them in, they're going to probably crumble a little bit. But all in all, one of those games, like you've said all year, is like you just got to win. How we started at the beginning of the year. Now we've had a roller coaster, but this game, like you just play solid, and it shouldn't really be a problem. I mean, they barely score over 60 in a lot of games. So thank you, Amir. They did beat Penn State yesterday. That was I should mention that. Tominga had 30. That Tominga kid is fun. Have you watched him?
I have not watched him yet. No.
Oh, he is awesome. I think he's like 6 foot. Lefty, just shoots like crazy stuff, has a headband, and then he got a tech from Japan. Yeah, just a Japanese player. He's so fun. And he got a tech last year. Where was it? Nebraska was like challenging, I don't know, Purdue or something, maybe. And I think it was like Edey had the ball, and he went up, he climbed the tree and like got a shot, blocked his shot. And then he lost his mind because they called a foul and he got a tech. And I'm like, see, I like these kids outside of the Big Ten because Big Ten kids, like, they know not to get techs because they'll just get killed by their coach. Like, I don't remember the last time I saw a player get a tech for that. Did you ever get a tech?
I was just going to ask you. I don't think I ever got a tech at Michigan. I got one tech.
At Michigan.
Yeah, I got one tech in the NBA, but never at Michigan.
Do you remember that? Was a memorable story?
I feel like Coach Beeline would just like get pissed at us, and I was like, I can't do it.
Kill you. No, you wouldn't even think twice.
You pay the price next day in practice for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think we had good rapport with the refs. Like Big Ten refs were good. The Israeli refs were dog doo-doo, so I lost my mind a couple of times. But anyways, back to Nebraska. I think a game like you just win. You play solid. You execute exactly like they have been. But I mean, I just really hope for them. The key for this game is execution. Like, just stay aggressive offensively. Don't get in one of those funks where you're like, okay, we have an advantage in the post, and you're just constantly trying to hit Hunter all the time. Like, let everybody eat. I mean, I don't know what you think they should be doing offensively, but I think that's where the key breakdown here is, like, you score over 70 against Nebraska, you should win the ball game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there needs to be some sort of looking back at these last two games and getting a sense of that rhythm they played with, for this team to go back and watch and really feel and see what they were doing differently. Because when they play with that kind of confidence and rhythm on the offensive end, they're a fun team to watch and they're hard to stop. And so again, the Nebraska game, I'm just win that game. The IU game, that's their chance for really their first very meaningful win. And again, if you string together these two wins, you got 4 wins in a row. They'll put themselves, in a decent place in the Big Ten standings. But it's at this point, it's do or die for them. It's like if you're losing any of these games this week, at least that's how I feel they should look at it. If you lose any of these games, you don't have a chance. You have no chance.
No, you can't be looking forward to IU.
No. So, Amir's saying here 6 teams at 7-5 in the Big Ten. So obviously close race, and Michigan is 7-5 right now. So they're right in that mix. Everyone's kind of beating each other up. So I feel like we're trying to find how we can give them credit for wins, because we're trying to judge how good each and every team is. It's hard just because the Big Ten's been so all over the place this year. But that's why even more so this IU game is so, so, so important for them, where it's got to be all hands on deck. Everyone's locked in and really doing their job, playing with intensity and effort. And that brings me back to the Northwestern game, just that energy they played with on the defensive side that kept them in the game when they weren't scoring. That needs to be a constant for them, because we know this team's going to have their nights where Doug is, doing some wild stuff off the dribble, or, Jets not hitting from 3, or Hunter's having off game. Like, there's going to be those games where you struggle. And that's why that defensive intensity and effort is going to be so key for them. So I don't know. Do we go back to glass half full? Because I was glass empty. I was glass empty last week, I got to admit.
I'm glass half full with their play. Like, now they've reached a point where they know they can do this. Like, they can play at a level. They got to prove it against an IU. First game is Nebraska. They got to be ready for that and prove that, obviously. But this IU game, this is the test. And then after that, it's kind of, then I'll be glass half full or empty. But how much have you watched IU? Not to put you on the spot. Have you watched any at all?
I would say here and there a little bit. I haven't watched like a full game all the way through of IU.
I asked just because I've watched a lot. Just being in Indiana, I went to an IU game. I watched the whole IU Purdue game. Everyone and their mother knew IU was going to win that game. I mean, Assembly Hall was just rocking. It was insane. That place gets nuts.
I did catch a little bit of that game.
Yeah, and they were intense, man. I mean, they played intense, but they can turn around and just lose by 20 to Rutgers. Like, they have it in them. So that they can go, they have their roller coaster ride as well. And part of that, it's part of college basketball, is catching teams and bad nights or good nights. So with their matchup, though, it's interesting. I kind of want to give my spiel about it because I've watched it enough. It's Trace Jackson Davis, who's been absolutely dominating. This kid is averaged, like, what my buddy told me, it was like in the last 8 games, it was like a couple games ago, it was like 25, 14, 5 assists, 4 blocks a game. I mean, he was just dominating. And the only reason that they were winning, really, like, he was carrying them. And so I think he's really, really good. I'm curious of how him and Hunter are going to match up. I think he play one-on-one. They've been sending quite a bit of double teams at him, at Trace Jackson Davis. Mm-hmm. And he's a pretty good passer. And that's how IU gets open threes, because otherwise they're not like a good three-point shooting team. Mm-hmm. So if you can play Hunter one-on-one against him, Hunter give him a little bit of space, because he's really athletic. I mean, the dude dunks the hell out of the ball, and he'll put Hunter on a poster if he's given the opportunity. He tried to put Edey on a poster last game, and he went up and he floated, and you could tell midair. This is how high he jumped. Like midair, he had enough time to think, yeah, this isn't going to work, and then bailed on it. Like everyone else would have just fallen to the floor, tried to dunk it, but he had enough air to bail on it. Yeah, Trace Jackson Davis averaging 19, 11, and 3 in Big Ten play. And
damn, I didn't realize it was that.
Yeah, and like in the last 10 games has been even better than that. Like just nuts. And the blocks. Yeah. Anyways, I think that's going to be a huge matchup, but I think he can get 30 and you still be fine. I think if Hunter doesn't foul, Trace isn't like going 15 for 20 from the field for 30 points. Like you can make him miss around the rim a little bit if you just stay solid. Like you said before, like someone's just there, he can miss a little bit. He's not got like the greatest touch ever in the world, but it's when you give guys more confidence around the basket or from 3-pointers, like they're hitting open threes. Like Galloway is not hitting a lot of threes, but if he gets an open, he's going to hit. Bates can come out, Cop, like they can shoot. But if you can play one-on-one with him, that makes a real difference. I was at the game. It was Michigan State at IU. Nick, I swear to God, it was 80% Trace Jackson Davis post-ups. It was the most boring offense I've ever watched in my entire life. And they Michigan State
2023, we're still doing that? What the heck?
Dude, I don't like Mike Woodson knows. He's like, yeah, I got this. I got a ringer here. And we'll give Jalen Hood-Schifino, who is an NBA player, by the way. We'll give him some opportunities. But that is going to be the key there. It's Kobe versus Jalen Hood-Schifino in that matchup because Jalen can score 20 plus, no problem. He's an NBA point guard one of these days. I mean, I think a lot of people have him on a draft board, but it's kind of those two. He's been up and down a little bit, but I think that matchup is head to head in like with the caveat that you make it head to head. So like nobody else is scoring 15, it's not like 15, 12, 10 for the rest of the guys. Cause then IU gets really dangerous. But that's going to be a hell of a matchup, those two together.
Wait, so we just got a note here, and I want to get your thoughts on this. That Kevin Herter said on the Maryland pod that he'd rather have Trace over Edey if he was building a team from scratch right now.
My whole argument, and I'm not a Zach Edey hater. I mean, the guy put up 33 and 18 on IU at IU yesterday, so I'm very aware that the guy is dominating. Guys like him don't win. Like teams with just like one massive like just center on their team, they don't win at the level
name who you were talking about. Name the people you were talking about.
Jared Sullinger, Greg Oden. I said we're better college big men than Zach Edey. And I said Zach Edey is he's another Isaac Haas. He's another Taco Fall, like these massive just big centers that play in college basketball. People figure them out. People figure him out. It happens every single year. It'll happen again this year.
That dude doesn't miss jump hooks,
We're talking about dominant.
He doesn't miss jump hooks.
Not
Payton
better.
has it figured out.
When
the guts of the game is on the line. They come down. They run the little handoff. They get it to him in the post. You either give up a jump hook or a wide open three. Pick your poison.
Yeah.
We had talked about if you're going to start to build a team right now, that you said, like, I'm going to build this team to win the national championship, I'm taking as my center Trace Jackson Davis over Zach Edey. I'm sorry.
Let me.
Kevin, I don't know, man.
I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think Edey. I think Purdue got exposed a little bit against IU. What I've been saying has been their biggest weaknesses. Listen, Fletcher and Braden Smith are very good basketball players, but I've said the strategy against Purdue the entire time was make Braden Smith a scorer as much as you possibly can. And they did that, they tried to, and they just pressured those guards quite a bit. So there's a long-winded way of saying Edey has made what I think is a decent team into the number one team in the nation because of his presence on both ends of the court. Like Gillis scored 29 in a game, hitting 9 threes. He scored 28 games like the last 6 games before that, 28 points the last 16 before that. Edey makes a world of difference for everybody. He's better. He makes everybody better just by being there, offensively and defensively. I don't think Purdue is a really great defensive team, but you're not going to get in the paint and try and score at the basket. And, a 5-foot floater is so much harder than a layup. So, I don't know. I think that I understand what he's saying from like a skill standpoint, and maybe like,
right.
If I have an NBA team, hell yeah. If that's what he meant, maybe if he's talking about an NBA team, sure. But a Big Ten team, I don't know, dude. What do you think?
Yeah, well, because that's the thing. I'm my thoughts on Edey. He's great. I think he's one of the best college basketball players in the country. But at the NBA level, I don't know if he'll be as effective. That's my biggest question. So it really depends if we're talking college basketball team from scratch or NBA, potential talent. Wait, you said Edie's game doesn't translate to the next level, but says Trace 1000.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I could see that.
Yeah, and I 2 months ago I said Trace was an NBA player, and now if he can roll to the basket, his athleticism. I mean, if he's a willing ball screener and defender for 15 minutes a game, I mean, he could have a career in the NBA even at 6'8".
Right.
But again, you get in where you fit in, right? You know the NBA. It all depends on so many different factors. Who likes you, who doesn't, and then where you fit. Who's your point guard, for instance? If you're a big guy, like there's so many different factors. But I mean, Trace is more translatable to the NBA. Edie's Boban, and Boban could barely play. Boban is the most points per minute in the NBA. I think like maybe somebody's like career, and he still can't get on the court because he's too big and slow.
It's tough because when you're that size, you still have to be able to guard. Like everyone in the NBA switches. Like that's the way people guard. And if you can't switch on to a perimeter player, it's hard to put you out on the court, especially come playoff time, because teams will find ways to expose you. If you have slow feet or, you're just not able to move laterally, whatever it is, they'll expose you. So that's always
why
the
there's all the
toughest
drop
thing.
coverages.
Yeah, it's true. But that's also why a lot of it's just based on, the team you play on, the opportunity you're getting, those also have very large effects on a player's, career. So I guess time will tell, but in college I would pick Edie for sure. That's my vote.
I mean, he's going to be player of the year. I don't think there's any way around it.
His numbers have been crazy. I can't remember the last time a player has put up numbers like this in college. I mean, and maybe the game's different now, but I just feel like it was way harder to put up those numbers 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. I don't know. That would be an interesting thing to look into about where he ranks historically. But then you get guys who are like scored 35 a game at Davidson.
That's true.
But anyways, yeah, that's an interesting question. But I'm excited for these matchups, man. Nebraska first, got to take care of business, but I could not be more excited as somebody from Indiana who lives in Indiana and has to hear about Indiana basketball every day in my friends group chat. It's something I'm really looking forward to. I am praying to God that they beat IU, but it'll be fun to watch. Before we finish out here, let's get to Word on Campus. All right, so shout out to the Michigan basketball managers at UMich B-Ball MGRS on Twitter. Go check them out. They beat Ohio State. They pretty much handled Ohio State in the manager game. I don't know if they hadn't been doing this for a while. I know they did it. I think they did it when we played. I feel like some guys played sometimes when you played, right? The managers? I
don't know if I just completely forgot, but I do not remember that being a thing. So this was news. This was news to me.
Yeah. They beat Ohio State's managers 98-76. I can't believe we don't have any footage of it, but we're just quick shout out to those guys. Now I'm kind of going through. One of the guys, his Twitter handle is like Jimmy Chitwood, number 15. So that's the Hoosiers guy. Do you know Jimmy Chitwood, Nick?
Yes, I know of him.
Okay. Because being from Canada, I don't know. But yeah,
I mean,
those guys.
I have been told a lot of time, and there's a lot of things I don't know because I'm Canadian, but I do know Jimmy. That's
good. I appreciate that, even though I hate the movie Hoosiers. But shout out those guys. That's dope. Hopefully they can post more of that. I haven't seen anything. Here we go. Manager Games _ at Manager Games _ It's the whole thing on Twitter. Damn.
I didn't realize. I didn't realize this was a thing like this.
Yeah. And I think they're building it up.
I didn't know that. Learn something new every day.
Hold on. And I'm not making fun of this, but this is wild. Okay. This is a post from Appalachian State men's basketball managers, and it has like a whole graphic. Can you see this here?
I can see it's a little
like check marks. Yeah, but I'll read it to you. Hottest start in manager games history, 4-0. Highest manager games ranking in Appalachian State history, number 15 in the nation. So apparently this is like a whole ranked ordeal that I had no idea. We got to keep track of this.
Who's on the ranking committee? Who
That's what I
are
wanna
these
know.
people on the ranking committee? I would love
Dude, they
to
got
know.
9,300 followers on Twitter. This is a thing. Ian May, let's see, Andrew Novak, Thomas Northcutt. I don't know. I need some footage though. That's what I need. Like if you're gonna,
I know we need some X's and O's time for the manager side of things as well. But you just love to see it. You love to see you take care of business against Ohio State. No matter what kind of competition we're in, you just love to see it. So I'm pretty stoked about that. They need us if this is a thing where there's rankings and everything, I need the X's and O's or at least like a top 10 plays of the week.
oh yeah,
10 wide. I need it.
yeah. Hopefully we can find something, put it up on the socials. Ernest said they're number one. Juwan shouted them out after the win. They're number one. Where's the rankings? This is wild. Oh, I'm checking out the website. There's got to be like a rankings. Are you surprised though? Because managers always go in depth, like they have to do all the nitty gritty stuff. So of course they want.
Yeah,
it's only right that they keep track of this. Fuck, hell yeah.
I gotta admit, I would much rather our actual team be number one, but
we got
it's a good consolation. I'll take it. In a down year that it's been, I mean, kind of glass half full, half empty year, I'll take number one manager ranking.
Yeah, I always talk trash to like our managers because like Indiana college rec league basketball is probably the best around the country just because of all like the old basketball high school stars that no longer went on to play college basketball, went to IU and just dominated at the rec league. So it's fun to see Michigan and Michigan State up there repping for some Michigan basketball, amateur basketball, because I'm not calling actual college basketball amateur basketball anymore because it's bullshit. All right. So it never was. Shout out to them. We got to keep track of that. Hey, any Michigan managers want to show us anything, keep us looped in with that. We love it. Nick, you got any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, big week ahead. Like we said, the pretty tight race in the middle of the Big Ten. A lot of guys tied at 7 with that 7-5 record. So, like we said, the Nebraska game, take care of business, and then IU. That's this team's real opportunity to get a quality win against a quality opponent. And that game's at home, right? That's in Michigan, right?
Yeah, both games are at home. So that's big.
Thank God, because IU is the only place that I never won at when I was at Michigan. Like I was 0-2. Yeah, it was a tough place to play. I'm not gonna lie to you. So
you played good ass teams.
I have more confidence knowing it's a home game for Michigan. Feed off that crowd, and you're not in such a hostile environment. Because IU is a tough place to win.
Yeah, it was my favorite place, but that's because I'm from Indiana, and that always helped. That was always my friends there. But yeah, it is tough. So at home would be good. Yeah, we'll be back after the IU game. Sunday, record Sunday or Monday, and it'll be released after that or something. I don't know what the schedule is yet, but we'll be back. As always, send us in your questions, thoughts, comments, concerns at Beyond the Big Ten. Beyond the Big Ten. 10 is 10. Or hit us up. SWD_317 on Twitter. Nick is Twitterless. Hit him up on Instagram. But yeah, we appreciate you guys listening. We will be back next week. Until next time, see ya.
Beyond the Big Ten is a network of podcasts that aims to be your go-to resource for all things Big Ten. We cover the entire conference with shows hosted by ex-players and athletic alumni, aiming to be your go-to source of information and entertainment for your favorite team. Hosted by ex-Big Ten players, media, and insiders, our podcasts are focused on giving diehard fans and those alums an inside scoop about the teams and people that make the Big Ten Conference one of the most watched and most talked about conferences in sports. We're excited to talk Big Ten basketball with you wherever you may be. Subscribe now.